Hi, welcome to our November Hope for Mental Health community. So glad you've joined us. So awesome to be together. I miss being together in person for those of you that are attend locally, but it's just always good to be together. So welcome today. I think you're going to enjoy our conversation. Couple things I want to tell you about beforehand. At Saddleback Lake Forest, if you live in the local area, from December 1st to the 24th of December, there's a brand new thing that we're doing this year that we've never done before. It's called Light of the World, Christmas Lights at Saddleback. And it will be drive-through every night. Watch for the specific timing, but it's free, of course, and you can drive through this incredible display of lights, and you're invited. And particularly for those of you in the mental health community on December 9th. We're going to be there, those of us in pastoral care and mental health ministry, to welcome you and to greet you. So if you can come on December 9th, we'd love to see you there. Hopefully be able to, chat a little bit through the car window and say hi, but don't want you to miss that. Also, if you're in a time of grief, you've lost someone in this year or in the recent years, and actually at any time, and are experiencing particular amount of grief at the holidays, want you to maybe consider attending a grief share holiday event. And they're all throughout the country, here in the US and locally, and we'll put the website in the chat, and so you can check for local events wherever you live, and maybe consider finding some comfort and some hope and some community during this time in grief share. And then want to make sure that you also notice in the chat that we'll be including a holiday plan, and I'll reference it in our time together today. Just a plan that we've put together that can help you think through what are the stresses that you experience during the holidays, what are the things that possibly help you during the holidays, what are the events that you anticipate could be a little bit problematic for you or make it a little rougher, and how to think that through, and what you can do to make it not just survivable, but you actually thrive during the holidays, which is what we all want. So today we're going to be talking about COVID, mental health, and self-care during the holidays. And in a conversation with some folks that all happen to be on staff at Saddleback, very authentic, real, vulnerable people who tell stories about themselves that I think you're going to identify with and will resonate with you. You're going to hear from Colton Harker, who is one of the college ministry pastors here at Saddleback. You're going to hear from Rugena Duff, who ministers in our pastoral care team and has for many years, and also from Meaghan and Ken Grider. Meaghan is the Lake Forest director of Celebrate Recovery, and she and her husband are quite the team, and I think you're going to enjoy my conversation with them. So let's join them. We are going to jump in. We'll get to the heart stuff, the stuff that is really the deep things. But right now we're just going to go with the total fluff. And so this is like fill in the blank here. It is not a holiday yet until you have eaten. What is that, Colton? It is not a holiday. Christmas, Thanksgiving, it's just not a holiday till you've eaten what?
My mom makes this great cranberry relish kind of thing. It's not like a cranberry sauce from the can, it's so much better. But Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, and it's the cranberry sauce that makes the whole thing.
Is it a cooked one or is it a raw one?
Oh, it's a cooked one, yeah. And there's just like so much sugar and stuff. It's so bad for you, but all the best things, all the best food is,
All the best things do have sugar, don't they? Oops, sorry, don't quote me. But yeah, okay. So Meaghan and Ken, it's not a holiday until you've eaten what?
Well, I would say molasses cookies and bran bread, which is my grandmother's recipe. And I actually have a food allergy, so it had to be adapted a few years ago. And my mom just made it work so that we can have molasses cookies and bran bread, and I can eat them because I'd be really sad if I didn't. What about you?
How about you, Ken?
This is going to sound weird, but
we like weird.
The answer is clam dip, of all things.
Let me guess, you're from the East Coast?
No, actually, I'm a California boy, and it's not from my family. It's from my wife's family.
Got it.
We don't really, in my family, we don't have any kind of regular traditions. It's sort of catch can with us. But ever since we've been dating, every holiday I go to her family's house, we gather around a clam dip at the beginning of the thing.
Is it a hot dip? Is it a cold one? What do you eat it with? It's cold. You eat it with?
It's
Ruffles potato chips.
Ruffles. It's super classy.
Kind of the way I am with sour cream and onion dip and the Lay's. It's like I can take them all down. I mean, I can eat anybody under the table that lays in that. Then that's not even my favorite holiday food. But okay, so clam dip. That's awesome. How about you, Rue? It's not a holiday until you've eaten what?
It is definitely not a holiday for me unless I have a big piece of sweet potato pie with homemade whipped cream.
Do you make it?
Oh, I try. My mother made the best sweet potato pie. I have tried to replicate that for years. Mine's okay, but it just doesn't have that special that she put in it.
Yes.
But yeah,
it's the love.
That, there is no holiday.
Do you eat that at both like Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Probably you eat it anytime you can get it.
Anytime I can get it, I have time to make it, I have it.
And it has to be homemade whipped cream, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
None of this spray stuff out of the can, of the Cool Whip, that frozen.
Cool Whip. No.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. So I think for me, it's not a holiday unless I have had these apricot cookies that a friend of mine taught me 45 years ago, right after I got married. She put them in a little gift box, and I've made them every year since. They're a cream cheese dough, and you cut them really fine, and then you cook apricots and put this little bit of apricot in it, and then you fold them, and the whole thing is you keep having to open the oven and make sure those little corners are still doing their thing and not trying to open, and you sprinkle them with powdered sugar. Gotta have those little apricot cookies. They are to die for. So maybe we need to have a party, and you can share, your mom's cranberry sauce, and you guys can share clam dip and bran bread and molasses and the sweet potato pie, and I'll bring up apricot cookies.
When you first talked about clam dip, I thought you said fun dip, like the candy. And I was like, hey, did you know you can get that all year round? You don't need to wait.
Doesn't just have to be a holiday. That is really funny. That is great. Okay, so one other kind of light question, holidays. Favorite holiday movie? So we'll switch it around. So Rue, do you have a favorite holiday movie?
Anything in the Charlie Brown series. I love Peanuts. I love It's a Christmas, It's a Great Pumpkin, Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown. I even have a Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
Do you?
That I sit on my mantle for Christmas. This year, I'm going to change out the bulb and put another bulb where I'm going to write my children's name and my grandson's name on it, and it will be hanging on the Christmas tree.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Any of those movies.
Any of those movies. Yep. They were so slow in comparison to, anything that's been made in the last 30 years. Yeah. And I think you have to have an appreciation for the slowness because there's no guns bursting, there's no fireworks, there's no police chases, there's no action. It's just very quiet.
What I love about it is looking at the expectation from the characters of the event coming and how they're preparing, and they want to have such a wonderful time. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but I just like it.
It sounds like a real family holiday. Sometimes it goes well and sometimes it goes well. Yeah, we'll talk about that. So Meaghan and Ken, Ken, you have a favorite holiday movie?
I think it goes back and forth because as a kid, it was always, as a kid, I say probably till my late 20s, was always the Rudolph movie.
Yes.
About that one that I really loved. But I think as an adult, probably It's a Wonderful Life is one of my favorites.
Classic. It's a classic Jimmy Stewart. You have to ring the little bell for him. The angel getting its wings. How about you, Meaghan?
When I was a kid, Sound of Music, because that's what was on network television on Christmas night. And so I loved watching that. We couldn't just, we didn't have Netflix. We had to watch what was on. So definitely when I was a kid, but for now, hands down, Elf. I quote that movie all year round. Doesn't matter if it's Christmas or not. And
true.
our boys and our daughter, they laughed so hard at that movie every time. It's like we're seeing it for the first time. So
That's Colton.
Meaghan, I'm really glad that you said a movie that wasn't like super traditional and classy, because I was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to break that? So I really love Christmas with the Cranks. If you guys have ever watched that,
Yeah.
Classic. Jamie Lee Curtis, you know, in her prime. It's just totally nutty and weird, and it's not super funny, but you know, just one of those movies that you just like is very endearing to you.
For me, total classic. It's White Christmas with Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye. I think I've just watched it my whole life, and because I've watched it my whole life, it's not Christmas for me until I've watched. You know, it's all schmaltzy and you know, ridiculously sentimental, and I know every line. I know what's going to happen next, and I sing along with Bing. And so we've asked some kind of silly questions, and now I wanted to ask a little bit more, let our audience know who you are more as a person. So Rue, if you wouldn't mind going first and just fill in a few of the blanks of you. Tell us a little of your story.
Oh, sure. Well, my name is Rugena, and I am the second of 4 gifts the Lord gave to my parents as children. I have an older brother. I have a younger brother who unfortunately is deceased, and I have a younger sister. And my family has some strange situations going on. We have individuals in our family that suffer from quite a few different mental disorders. One being my sister, she is suffering from bipolar disorder. My younger brother suffered from bipolar disorder before he took his life by suicide. And I have other cousins and individuals in my family that are struggling. And I was parentified at a very young age. My parents worked, and as the older sibling, I was charged with handling the younger kids. And that was a little difficult at times because of their disorders, but I managed it. My parents died 12 days apart in 1977, and I was left to handle and raise 2 siblings under the age of 16 at that time. So it was really difficult for me, but God has a way of helping us through those things. I had children at a very young age as well. In my life, in my family, I also suffered from sexual abuse and resulting traumas and behavioral issues that I went through as well. So I had my son at a very young age, and not even 4 months after my parents passed, I don't know what happened. He went into a coma, and he was in a coma for 7 days. And I was looking out of the window at the hospital, just begging the Lord to save my child. You know, I asked him, if you are real, Father, please don't take my baby from me. And it wasn't 2 minutes later, I could hear him screaming for me down the hall. And at that point is when I knew God was real. I knew God loved me, and I have not turned my back on him since. My son is a happy, healthy man of God with a family of his own. He has given me 2 grandsons. My daughter is happy, healthy. She is married as well and has given me 1 grandson. I went back to school to earn my master's degree as a professional clinical counselor. And currently I'm working on my hours for licensure. And I serve with Saddleback and the pastoral care pastoral care ministry. And I love being in that ministry. I love my coworkers. They have such a heart for people, and we work well together in serving those that are hurting. And that's just a little bit about me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. That is a boatload of some grief that you've experienced. You've walked some hard paths, and we'll talk more about that, how that's affected, you know, even holidays, as being a caregiver. you know, for siblings and then children and parents. So thank you for what you shared, Rue. Colton, would you mind sharing with us just a little bit about you, who you are, and some of your story?
Yeah. I grew up at the church that I now work at. I got super involved in junior high and into high school, but I don't feel like I truly knew what it meant for God to like for God to change your life, for God to change your heart until I was 19. So I feel like I really began my walk with Jesus at 19 years old, and ended up finding my way into ministry and working with high school ministry. And now I work on our college team at Saddleback Church, and I've been doing pastoring here now for a little over 9 years. I am married to just the most patient person on earth. And we have one daughter named June. And any day now, like honestly, during the middle of this, I could get a phone call. We are going to have another kid, a little boy. But I remember the first time I remember feeling, you know, like something might be a little bit off. I would have like a stressor, or something would happen, or someone would say something and my hands would sweat and my heart would race, and I felt like I would have trouble breathing. I didn't know what it was, and kind of thought everybody experienced that. And it wasn't until I was 21 that I started going to counseling and learning about anxiety and learning about panic attacks and understanding some depressive episodes that I've been having throughout my life. And I had started medication for those. I've been going to therapy, but the medication had never been really working as we wanted it to. And um, probably 3 months into getting married, I started a 6-month depressive / mixed bipolar episode, and I was diagnosed with bipolar 2. And that was just a really hard season as we are beginning our life together, figuring stuff out. And I'm beginning this whole journey of understanding what this is, and starting to question pieces of like my identity and community, and feeling lonely. And God, just through this journey of something that I felt would cause me to be so disconnected from other people and cause me so much fear, has allowed me to become so connected with other people and find some kind of hope through it. And so now I found a really great system that's worked for me, some great medication for some great doctors, and I've been managing it pretty well for about 4 years now.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. I think probably a lot of people can relate to your story. Just, you know, from what we know, a lot of mental health challenges began around the age that it did for you. And so that's not uncommon at all. And like I said, I'm sure there are a lot of people who could identify with what you've shared. So thank you. So Meaghan and Ken, welcome. And just tell us a little bit about you. You can take turns, or you can speak as one, or
You want to start, and I'll fill in the holes?
No, I think you should start.
I grew up in California. I'm a native. I would say my childhood was probably characterized by fear and anxiety. I grew up in a family who loved us very much, but there was no expression of conflict. We never dealt with difficulty, and those two things combined produced a profound desire to escape reality inside of me. By the time I was 14, I had developed a drinking problem already. Quit when I was 24, and married my wife shortly thereafter. A couple years after that, we 5 years ago got involved with Celebrate Recovery, and just in the last couple of years, we have ventured to Saddleback and joined the Saddleback family, and we're loving Orange County, and we have 3 kids.
Yes.
And you want to fill in?
Sure.
Some other?
So I'm also a California girl. Ken and I have actually known each other since I was 11. He was 16. He was not interested in me. So I just want to be really clear about that. But I grew up in a home with rampant addiction. On both sides of my maternal and paternal side, there has been generational addiction, and that has kind of plagued both of those families. Not growing up in a family of faith. Actually, my father was not neutral. He was opposed to any sort of faith, especially Jesus-centered faith. So that's kind of how I grew up. My parents divorced when I was young. The first time I was 4 years old, and my mom also had an undiagnosed mental illness. And so my older sister and I, my mom was a single mom. She was a nurse. She worked in the emergency room at night. My parents had bought a home in a neighborhood that was beautiful, and then all of a sudden overnight it became extremely affluent, which we were not. So just from a very early age, I felt like I didn't really belong. And I felt like I was the caregiver and the kind of keeper of all the secrets in our family. My father would kind of drop out for months and sometimes years at a time. And my mom, who was just, she just did so much to try to create a home for us, but she also was an undiagnosed. She had a form of depression and anxiety that really can manifest looking like it's manic depressive. So there were real dark days in our home, and we learned to just kind of lay low. It didn't matter if we didn't have dinner and things like that. So I'd always, because of the family that I grew up in, I'd always said, I'm never, ever, ever going to drink. I'm never going to use any illegal substances. But not dealing with pain in childhood and not having safe places, you stuff it down, and it ultimately came out. I started my road of addiction, and it was very short, but it was a pretty significant time. And when I found sobriety, or when I started working a program, there was a constant saying of, a higher power of your own understanding. And because I was really against organized religion, but at the same time, I was like, my own understanding tells me to drink and use. So I don't understand, like I can't wrap my head around that. And so in a secular 12-step program, I found some beautiful, amazing Christian women who made a huge impact on me. And Ken and I had started dating at the time, and I had a radical transformation. I really believed that Jesus had died for my sins and that he saved me, and I believed in Jesus, but I didn't know how to believe Jesus. And so what ended up happening for us, that transition of I was no longer drinking and using, Ken was no longer drinking, we became the church people. It was a church very similar to Saddleback. Our old pastor reminds me so much of Pastor Rick, just this prophet, visionary experience, super seeker sensitive. And we jumped into ministry. I mean, both feet, like whatever, we would just make money so we could do ministry. And we did everything. We did kids, we did teens, we did women's, we did men's, we did facilities, we did drama, like whatever. And, but what ended up happening is, because I had so much pain from my childhood that I hadn't dealt with, is I started struggling with ministry becoming an addiction, not my faith, but ministry and serving others so that I could feel good about myself and seeking value from other people. And in the midst of this, we have 3 kids, as Ken has said. And, I'd always wanted the perfect family with the white picket fence and the church family, and everybody looks great. And we have a unique family. We have 2 of our children, both our sons are on the spectrum and have some special needs. Our oldest son struggles with mental health issues, and I share that with his permission, just as I shared about my mom with her permission. And it became hard because life didn't go the way I wanted it to, and I was mad at everybody. I was mad when they didn't do what I told them to do, because if they just listened to me, everything would be great. And we went through a lot of trauma with our sons, and our daughter was kind of squished in the middle. So right before we started Celebrate Recovery, which we went to as a ministry to fix that ministry at our church, not because we needed it, of course, because
one more place to serve.
Yeah, we just wanted to serve. I was diagnosed with a pretty significant autoimmune disease that I hadn't known, but for the past few years, I had clinical depression and anxiety associated with that, which was very similar to what my mom struggles with. And so not understanding that depression and anxiety can really change your mind, and not knowing that medication was okay. I started my own mental health journey, and it has been challenging, but it has been good to finally come out into the light and be able to acknowledge that, well, I haven't had a drink or used in 30 years. I still struggle with many things. And also that, you know, mental illness is a real thing, and I struggle with it. And we have some struggles within our family with that as well.
Wow. You know, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Meaghan, for your honesty and your vulnerability. Thank you for, you know, not sugarcoating anything, but just kind of saying this is us. This is, you know, where we've been, and this is where we are, and where we're headed. And what I appreciate just right off the bat from all three, counting 3 squares on Zoom, but all the 4 of you, I never have done math very well, is just, again, that level of vulnerability and honesty, and the fact that you, it's your relationship with Jesus Christ at the end of the day that gives you the strength to handle the challenges that you face and the difficulties and the griefs, the losses, the ongoing struggles, the things that don't get fixed. And I hear that from each of you, and we'll talk more about that as we go. So thank you for that. But we particularly want to talk about the holidays, because the holidays present their own set of challenges for everybody, every family. I think every single family has some challenge around the holidays. Or if you don't tell me, because you would be the one perfect family, and I would be so envious if you're the one family that doesn't have any struggles around the holidays. But then when you add, you know, mental health challenges, when you add in recovery, when you add in children, when you add in caregiving roles and different things, it just can make it a little bit more complicated. And so we are approaching a holiday season for the first time in our times where there's been a pandemic that was going on. And so that just adds another, I mean, 2020 has been a year. Sometimes when I write it out, I'll just write it out that way. 2020 has been ... a year. And so here we're coming up on our first holidays during 2020 with all that it has held. It has been a challenging year. And so when we talk about the holidays, it's typically a season of high connection. You know, we're together with people. We're not just together occasionally, we make all these plans with multitudes of people. We hang out in all different kinds of ways then, and so now the traditions are going to probably have to be a little bit different. So as you're thinking about the holidays, and we're trying to talk to other people who are figuring out how to navigate and negotiate their particular holidays, what traditions are you already aware of are going to look different in your family this year? Rue, we'll come back to you. Are you aware of any traditions already that you think are going to be different this year?
Yes, there are. Traditionally, we've always met at one of our family members, whether it's an aunt or cousin or someone's home, and we would just be one big dysfunctional family, you know, having fun and enjoying the holidays. But this year, because some of my family members are very cautious about COVID, and they are taking extraneous steps in order not to be exposed. And then there are some that, you know, it's just a cold kind of thing. So what I've decided to do for my own personal health and the health of those that will be in my environment is I'm just going to have smaller gatherings. Like I'll invite my son and his family over, and we'll celebrate Thanksgiving, and I may or may not celebrate Christmas at the same time if I'm ready. And then I'll have my daughter and her family over. And then I'll invite my sister and her family, you know, and just have smaller gatherings as opposed to having just one big gathering with everyone. I don't want to give up the holiday because of COVID, but I will take any measure that I can to make sure I'm safe and everyone that is here safe. I have to have that sweet potato pie cake. No, I can't just let that go. And those are just some of the things that I'm planning on doing for this holiday season.
Okay. Yeah. How about you, Colton? What's your family looking at? You're going to have a new baby on top of everything else.
Yeah. And I feel like that's one of the things that makes this a little tougher, because you want to like invite your kids into these things that you've enjoyed for so long, for like all of these years. And they're going to be young, and I know that the opportunities are going to change, and this isn't forever, but it's a little bit of a disappointment for us. We usually invite in like extended family in for Christmas and for Thanksgiving, and people, it's a bummer because sometimes they might not have other family to go to, but it might not be safe. So that's going to be sad, just not being able to enjoy holidays with them at the same time. And just a really big one, I think, for me, growing up at this church and us not being able to we're doing cool stuff for Christmas, but maybe not the stuff that I just remember doing for so long, and not being able to bring my kids on the patio to watch the Christmas tree lighting. We'll get to do other really fun stuff, and I'm really thankful for the opportunities we do have, but things are just different, and things hopefully won't be different forever. They won't be different forever.
Yeah. Meaghan and Ken, what do you already know, or you speculate is going to be different this year?
Well, it's interesting because I think God has been gracious in that he prepared my heart last year for getting ready for quarantine, because we moved from a community that we'd been in for 26 years. You know, that was the church that we had worked in. Those were our friends, our family. We had huge gatherings at every single holiday at our tiny, tiny little house. But that's what we were accustomed to. And it was, if anyone didn't have anywhere to go, we would have them over, because that's the example my mother set. She was beautiful. She is beautiful at that. And then last year, we had a unique experience, and also being in ministry, you know, we Christmas is like, you're at the church, kids. I don't know what to tell you. We'll get home on Christmas Eve. You can open your jammies and then go to bed. Like, that's just what our kids grew up with. And so, so last year was a huge shift for us in that we live in a place that's really hard to get into. So it's not like people can just stop by. And we don't have as close or as big as a community, because we do have really close friends here. So I think it prepared us, but you know, it's different not being able to and then not being able to. And so I don't know, frankly, how I'm going to do with that. I think that I love community. I love connection. It's part of my love language. So I think our kids we found kind of a new here with them in terms of connection and living in a different physical space. But what are your thoughts?
I echo a lot of the same feelings, in that this is sort of icing on top of frosting with, you know, with the bad cake, whatever that is. Because we were the house that, because we did youth ministry for so many years, you know, we had kids who turned into adults and would just stop by, and every Sunday we'd come home from church, and then there would be people on their way home from church that would just come and hang out at the house.
And they bring their kids, you know, now they have kids. It was just really neat.
And that kind of changed for me when God brought us here, and we knew it. You know, we have specifically made the determination that we're not going to run back to that we belong here now. And this is where God has put us, and we're growing a community here. So, and then I think kind of all this stuff happened, and it's, we have had to be very intentional about reaching out and engaging and finding ways to connect. So I expect that the holidays are going to be the same thing, that we're going to have to be very intentional about finding ways to connect with people. You know, because our family is always here. They don't go anywhere.
They are always here. They are always here.
So I assume we're going to spend time with them.
We're going to spend a little time with our family.
Yeah. So that makes me think, because holidays are never drama free, at least again, in my experience, there's always something that can create drama. And it may have to do with, your family of origin and some dysfunction. It may have to do with just the fact that living is, as human beings, we are always kind of messing things up unintentionally. So let's just talk about maybe even in the past of what have been some challenges around family dynamics, in the holidays, and what have you done in the past to kind of mitigate those? Or, did you have a plan that you kind of worked around? Well, sometimes people do scenario planning, so if Uncle so-and-so says this, then we will do XYZ.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have to have those contingency plans. But yeah, so what in the past, what have you learned through the holidays of how to work with family dynamics? Sometimes some of them might be difficult, some might be challenging, some of it's overcoming your own, that's the stuff you bring into a family. We'll mix it up a little bit. I'm going to ask you first this time, Colton, what from the past, what maybe used to be difficult? What are you figuring out that has nothing even to do with COVID? It's just, hey, this is family relationships at the holidays can have challenges.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One of the first ones is like expectations of feeling like everybody has these expectations of you, and it's family, and it can be outside of family, it can be work and friends. And I remember one time someone came in and told me like, okay, I need you to be like the fun one that gets the stuff going. And I know that like, that's so well intentioned, right? They're like, they know I work with students, they know I can do fun things. And they don't know the other part of me that's like, hey, I'm feeling really anxious, or I'm feeling like I'm headed into a depressive episode and I don't feel like I can really perform for you in that way right now. And I think that those kind of stressors were tough. I think that for me, like maybe my own thing is my lack of communication is what gets in my way. I think as comfortable I am with having bipolar disorder, I still feel scared um, and insecure, and that people won't understand that it's Christmas and it's supposed to be happy, but what if I can't, and I'm trying so hard, and I'm going to be the person that brings that down, and it's just not fair. Like, they deserve this thing. My kids deserve a dad that's going to be doing this thing, and it's going to be right, and it's just not fair. And not communicating those things to my family, who is so loving and is understanding and is like, oh, I know you don't want to feel that way. Do whatever you need to do. Even in the past, they've like, do you want to nap? Just go upstairs and nap. Do your thing. Do whatever you need to do. And I think for so long I carried all of my assumptions about other people, or like let my fears kind of rule me, that I forgot what God had given me. And I think that was tough. And not expressing to my wife like my anxiety heading into something, like, hey, I don't want to go to this thing. I am afraid that someone's going to say this thing, and I just don't want to be a part of it. And having someone be like, yeah, you know what, that stuff is hard, and I also don't want to do that too, and I understand how that's tough. What if we do this? What if we just stop by, and then we can make an exit, and we don't have to do this whole thing? And just understanding the beauty of like, hey, maybe it isn't as scary as I think it is. What I said a little bit earlier, like this thing that I thought was going to cause me to be so disconnected from other people and make me feel so lonely. When I actually do communicate, I'm so much safer than I thought I could be, and people understand, and it's my family, and they want to help take care. And then I think there's a part of that is there's parts of my family that are just really a safe place for me, and God's just really blessed me with that. And just some lessons that I've learned along the way.
Thank you. That I think what I heard you say that was particularly powerful is the role of empathy, and how a kind word, somebody who says that's hard for you. I hear that, and then the strategy. Why don't you go take a nap? Because that might renew your energy, instead of like, ugh, you know, what's the matter with you? There's empathy. Empathy is man, it just carries us so far.
It changes everything. I was like, my wife is one of the big examples to me of that. And I've told her, I was like, the way that you care for me and carry patience for me when you see like the best parts of me and then the very worst parts, it just like helps me so clearly understand the gospel. Just seeing that lived in my life here on earth by someone else that's tangible, that empathy just goes so far. You're right.
That's really sweet. Thank you. Your wife she is a beautiful person.
Yeah, I agree.
So Rue, what, you know, in the past, you've done a lot of caregiving, and if multiple people are not doing well, you know, at a holiday or something, so managing a lot of expectations and maybe a lot of people here and all over the place. What strategies and what's been hard about that, and what have you found to be helpful?
It has been hard, Katie. But what I have found to be helpful in those situations, because no matter what the gathering is, whether it's holiday or not, there's always going to be someone, you know, at a gathering that's either depressed or suffering from anxiety, or they're just all over the place. And for me, because my entire family has always looked to me to be the problem solver. I've always been the fixer. I've always been the one that's strong, always the one that takes care of everyone else. So I tend to fall into that role, even though I don't feel like it, even though I'm not strong, even though I'm dealing with my own issues. So what I do in those situations is I just let them know, hey, I can't do it this time. I just can't. I need you to help me. And then in the areas where I can be empathetic and helpful to them, I am. I'm open. I give them the floor as far as expressing themselves. Those individuals that are dealing with the depression or the anxiety, I gather with them and try to make them feel welcome and wanting them to be involved. But if they can't, I understand them. So I leave them alone. And in my helping way, I make sure everyone else leaves them alone as well. You know, because sometimes we, as Colton said, you want to be there, you want to be involved in the family gatherings and events, but you just can't. And for someone to understand that, validate that feeling, and accept it is what I have found that really helps in my family.
You brought up something that I'm sure, you know, Meaghan and Ken can very much identify with, just that idea. I thought I saw it at the corner of my eye, nodding ahead a little bit on, you know, being as the caregiver and the one that everybody is expecting you to, you know, you've played that traditional role for so long of holding everything together. And yet you also, which I really appreciated, you talked about how you've learned you can't do that all the time without paying a really high price yourself, and being able to say, I'm not able to do that right now. You know, that you're able to look at you as a person, your own self, and say, I can't take care of myself and fulfill all of those caregiving roles for everybody else in the way that they would like for me to. And I bet you didn't learn that quickly. I mean, the ability to say no, the ability to say, I can't do that. I have a feeling that might have taken some time.
It did. It took me I actually had a stroke at 35. And it was from the pressure of family, of work, and just life. And my body just said, you can't, I'm not taking you any further. And one thing I have discovered, knowing and loving the Lord, He will put us down so that we can rest. He will put the brakes on us when we have gone to the limit. And He's already said, I'm taking care of this, you don't have to. So yes, I've learned the hard way that self-care is paramount. You cannot take care of someone else if you don't take care of yourself. And that word no has become a part of my vocabulary since that time. And my family understands, you know, they may not like it, you know, because we're selfish people. They may not like the fact that I say no, or I can't, or not this time, or even I can't do it all. Can you help me? You know, so they understand that. My friends understand that. So it was a hard lesson learned.
But ultimately, you sound like you're in a much healthier place because of that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So Meaghan and
of ourselves.
Sorry, say that again.
I said definitely we have to take care of ourselves so that we can be that supportive person for someone else.
Yep. I was just going to say, Meaghan and Ken, this is, well, not only is this the work of your life and ministry in Celebrate Recovery and helping even people work through their issues of codependency, and which I think, in my experience as a caregiver of both my son with his very serious mental illness, and then my mom with Alzheimer's, and then I think I come from a long history of caregivers who, well, let's just say it, codependent people. In my case, it was definitely codependent people. So I've had that's been a long road for me too, to be able to distinguish some of those places where caregiving has moved over into, it feels like I'm taking care of you, but actually I'm taking care of me because I'm feeling less anxious if I take care of you. And if you do better, then I must be doing better. And therefore, you know, it just is this whole messy thing there. Yeah. So like I said, so that's your life and ministry work, but it's also your own stories. You know, you're not just talking about it from, you know, your head. This is your heart and where you walk. So how in your life and in your families have you taken your backgrounds and learned how to work through maybe some very uncomfortable holiday moments?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, I feel like we're related, Kay, because I get that and I understand that. And Colton, I just echo what you say. I think for me, in terms of holidays, it's expectation. It's managing and having appropriate expectation, but really it's the internal expectation of myself. It's not usually external expectations. And that's the thing with a struggle with codependency or perfectionism, which sounds like this really pretty thing to struggle with, but it is. I mean, it kills relationships, it kills joy, it kills when I'm seeking to be perfect in control situations by making them perfect, which is unattainable and inappropriate. It can really devastate a family. And I know there were years, especially when our kids were little, you know, I actually started in life as an actress. That's my background. So I'm really good at looking like I have it all together. And I'm really good at looking like I'm creating memories for my kids. And I like to curate a life. You know, I wanted lots of presents under the tree, even when we were financially struggling. You know, I'd go into their old toy baskets and I'd just wrap their presents because they're young and they don't remember, which is not it's not bad, but it wasn't, you know, I didn't do it for them to have an experience. I did it for the way that it would look. And the same was true in our church role, or in my church role. I'll speak just for me. And then just wanting it to be like, I can say yes to everyone, especially in the holidays. And not understanding that desire, that's not coming from a heart of overflow. That's not coming from a heart of service. That's coming from wanting value and wanting to experience something and kind of control the outcome. And so that was a struggle for me. It was a huge struggle for me. It was very difficult for our marriage because, you know, when I have it in my mind how things are going to go, and I don't communicate that, first of all, to everybody. And second, I do communicate and they still don't do it. It doesn't cause, you know, it's not like when people are around, we're like, hey, Merry Christmas, and everybody leaves. I was like, get it together, guys. You know, I mean, it just wasn't a great experience for my family. And it's something that grieves me, but God has really used it to shine a light on some things that I can do differently. And some of it too, like one of the greatest gifts of struggling with chronic illness and having illumination of, you know, and a diagnosis of my mental illness is that I can kind of count back. I happen to be on a kind of up and down cycle that is pretty consistent. And so I look at the calendar and I think, okay, Christmas is falling here. This is so I know, like last year, I knew that I was going to be in a depressive cycle. I knew because of the dates. I knew because of the month. I knew that I was going to be in a depressive cycle. So I got to really take some steps so that I didn't overschedule, so I didn't overextend. So I was trying to make choices that were not just good for me, but good for my family. So that's me. But you live with someone who struggles. What's that like for you?
And I am someone who struggles. So you are very good at that. You have gotten very good at that. You know, the first thing I thought of was that that my family does not communicate except by sarcasm and by passive aggressive, by guilt.
Family of origin.
My family of origin, not
family.
my current family. Although
let's clarify.
It could go either way.
So I was going to say that one of the things that I have learned to do through the program and through recovery is that I have learned to set boundaries, and those boundaries look like, well, you didn't really ask me something, right? If you don't ask me something, I don't respond to that, which as a codependent myself is very difficult, because you know I get the guilt and it's an expression, but you're not asking me something, so I don't respond, because that's my boundary, is until you've actually communicated something, I can't respond to it. So, but then I want to backpedal, and I feel bad that, you know, I understand what you're trying to say, but I'm not responding to it because you're not clearly communicating. So that's been a struggle. That
has to be sort of a fun dance.
I'm sorry?
That has to be sort of a fun dance in the Grider household.
It is. Well, you know, I'll say, gosh, I wish I had the holiday decorations. And they'll be like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, Ken, will you please go get the holiday decorations? Like, oh, you're going to make me ask you. It's been good because you have to own your stuff, right? So I could hold a grudge, but I didn't ask. So.
Yeah. Again, I know this has taken you time. Just like Rue was saying, it's taken time for her to recognize, I can't just take care of everybody else. I have to take care of myself over a period of time. I know that over a period of time, you guys just didn't learn that quickly. No,
it's definitely, and I think that's where Celebrate Recovery helped us. We had faith, we were in ministry. I wouldn't say that we weren't people who didn't love God. I just don't know that I really invited him into the authentic parts of me that he wanted to grow. And it's changed the dynamic of our family. Like our daughter, who's 20 right now, she'll always say, Mom, I liked it better when you were codependent. I was like, yeah, because I fixed your life and I'm not going to do that anymore. So it has shifted the dynamics. And some of it is we have to own our stuff. Like Ken can't be my savior. Ken can't fix my chronic pain. Ken can't make me better from codependency. No one in my family, no relationship, no the perfect outfit isn't going to fix my life. The perfect gifts under the tree isn't going to fix my life. And I think I lived so long thinking that. And some of that was informed by my mental health issues. Some of that was informed by my childhood, and some of that was just informed by my character defects. And so to awareness is painful. But once God shines the light on something, even if that circumstance doesn't change, there's something about insight, and there's something about understanding that, where it's like, sometimes I can be like, I hate that I can't get off the couch today because my depression is so bad. And it really does remind me of my mom, and I don't like that. But at the same time, sometimes I'm like, today I have to be on the couch. This is me making a decision, not my struggle making a decision for me, but I'm making a decision, and I'm saying no to that thing for the holiday, or I am saying, kids, you get 3 presents under the tree, not because of you guys, because that's what I need for healthy boundaries.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you guys one more question as we wrap, so you can be thinking about this as we, this, like I said, this is 2020 has been a hard year, just a hard year with everything. Mm-hmm. You name it. It's been hard, and a lot has been shaken, I'd say, in our nation and in our personal lives. Life doesn't look the same as it does, as when we started this year. It's just everything. It's just been a challenging year. So my question to you that I want you to think about is, are you looking? I want to put words in your mouth, because I really don't want to force you to say something that isn't true about you. Are you looking? Is there anything that gives you hope as you look toward the holidays? And if you're at a place right now where you'd say, you can say that. You can be as honest as you want to. There's no expectation that you have a nice little answer that we can tie a bow on the top. If you do, that's great, but there's no expectation of that. So while you're thinking about that, I would just say what I heard, I was writing down some of the things that I heard you say, that as we talk, those of you that are watching this and you're looking at the holidays and you're looking at your own life and your own family and the challenges that are going to come up, the political conversations, the conversations about COVID, the conversations about race, the conversations about what's happening economically, what's going to happen to you fill in those blanks from the things that have been so upending this year, and then add that to the normal dynamics that go on in your family. And it can create a little bit of anxiety as you think about it. So what I heard our friend say, what I heard Rue say, what I heard Colton say, what I heard Ken, what I heard Meaghan say, is their strategies or the things that they have learned that are going to help them as they face this kind of holiday this year is the importance of empathy, just the kindness of imagining what the person that you're talking to or interacting with in that moment is feeling like. What is life like for them in that moment? What is their experience? We tend to walk into every situation thinking that everybody sees everything exactly the way we do, everything. And even though with our heads we would say we don't, in actuality, we do. We tend to interact with other people as though they are acting and feeling and responding the same way we are. And then we can't understand why they react differently instead of understanding, oh, you really are a completely different person than I am. So that empathy of just recognizing the other person has a different thought, has a different feeling, has a different response, whether you agree with it or not. They are a person who deserves empathy and kindness. And I hear that. I heard Colton talk about freedom. We didn't come back around to that, but I heard Colton say, when I know that I have choices, I can do that. But I also have an out. The people in my life have said, if you can't do that right now, it's okay. And just knowing that I have that freedom allows me sometimes to go ahead and do something that I thought I couldn't do, but because I have the freedom there, I can do that. So offer freedom to people. Instead of binding people together with you must do this, you have to do that. No, why don't you do that? But to give people those options. I also heard lots of words around self-care, of recognizing that we don't have an inexhaustible level of energy and passion, and our bodies just aren't made that way. They don't hold up like that. We don't have an inexhaustible resource of energy and vibrancy. There's some days that we're just kind of off, and that's okay. And we talked a lot about choices and deciding that sometimes I think if we live with mental health challenges, there can be the wrong self-talk that says, well, I guess I have to do this because of my illness, or because I have this condition, or because I have this challenge, instead of saying, yes, I have XYZ, and I'm choosing to do this. It may be a way to take care of myself, but I'm choosing. I'm not locked into inevitable responses. Being aware of the time and the season and the episodic nature of illness, the episodic nature of life, that it does kind of ebb and flow, and there is a rhythm to it. Making allowances in your own self for those, being aware and making allowances for those rhythms and for those sometimes even predictable things are going to happen this way. And so what are you going to do ahead of time to nurture yourself, to build in care for yourself, to build in ways that will get you through a particular, and even saying, you know what, I know this is going to be challenging emotionally. So instead of being out 3 nights this week, I'm going to be out 1 night this week, because that will stretch out the energy that I have. That's not a defeatist way of looking. That's not being a weakling. That's not being a baby. That's not being anything negative. It's actually being very wise, and it's actually being very strong. And so I hope that you have heard all of these things that Ken and Meaghan and Rue and Colton have said, that you'll take them to heart, There's a holiday plan that is going to be in the chat that you can look at, that you can take some of what you've heard and apply that for your own situation. And as we close, looking at the holidays ahead, I just want to come back to these friends and just ask if they have some hopes for the future. Maybe they're in a place right now today that feels like a stretch. And I know you listening, you don't want to hear a pretty answer. You want to hear people talking about their real lives. So I'm going to trust that what we share in this point is the real things that they are thinking and feeling. And so, Rue, I'm going to come back to our original order and start with you and ask that question. Are any particular hopes that you have this year, given all it's been? Where are you at?
With the struggles in my family came, I always have hope, that just one more will accept Christ, or just one more will seek some help that they really need. As far as the holidays are concerned, that's my hope. Gathering with them, as dysfunctional as they can be, and the problems that we all bring into the midst, I would love to see them all. But if I can't, I can't. But they know I love them. They know I'm praying for them. They know that I'm seeking every day for the Lord to touch them, touch their heart, give them some peace. So that's the hope that I have for this holiday. It's just that they really realize the true reason for the season and look forward to an eternity with one another, healed and happy. That is my true hope.
Thank you, Ruth. Thanks for participating with us today. Thanks for sharing your heart and your hope. Colton?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I feel like my first answer should be my kids. I'm having a new kid, and I feel like that should be really hopeful, and I think that it is. I feel like my really honest response is yes. What I want to say is yes, but yes, but it also makes me so fearful about all these other things, or yes, but I also feel so insecure about all these other things, and it's just made my therapist and I've been working a lot about the word but, and learning to try to replace it with and hopefully find some hope in that. Yes, I'm gonna have a kid, and this is gonna be a really profound experience, and it's also gonna be tough, and it doesn't have to be good or bad. It can just everything can happen at once. And I think I'm focusing on that and to try to help give me hope through all those things as I head into the holiday season. Yes, there's this person that I don't want to talk to, and I can still have a good time, and I can still do all these things. And that, I think, is giving me hope in this season.
I love that. That's a very profound word. Ken and Meaghan.
Well, I think, there is a lot about life right now that is creating anxiety in me. But at the same time, I'm finding great deals of hope expressed through vulnerability and transparency with other men. I'm in the middle of a step study right now, and it is, it's always a life transforming experience to share what's going on with a group of men, and to have them share what's going on with them in the same way. I think for me, I love when science discovers something new in outer space or something in the depths, or, and I can say, God is there too. And I tend to forget that, God is here too. And that it may mean that I need to be more intentional about the holidays, that I need to find ways to, as I've said before, to connect that aren't the normal ways to connect, if there's a normal way to connect, I guess. But I think for me, the hope is in that, whatever I do, that God's there as well. And whatever it ends up looking like, that I don't have to have these great expectations that I put on anyone else, as long as those expectations are on God, that he would just be there in the midst of it.
Yeah, and I think, I think a lot about what you have said, Kay, that life isn't, peaks and valleys. It's these two rails, and that joy and sorrow can coexist. And right before COVID, we went through a really significant and life-threatening health issue or mental crisis with our oldest, and that is still grieving me. That is still a painful situation. And at the same time, COVID allowed him to be with us for the first 3 or 4 months after his diagnosis, and we could, I didn't have that fear of what's happening with my son. And so that was sorrowful, and also I was grateful. I was grateful that he was here, as much as it's really hard to have 3 or 5 really big people in an apartment together. It was good that he was here. And I think the same is true, for the ministry that we have the privilege of shepherding. There's some great joy of seeing people in the midst of COVID stepping out of denial and into God's truth and the grace that he has for them. And also, we've lost people in our ministry, and it devastates my heart. And I can still say, I'm going to set my mind on the hope of things above, because his mercies are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. The Lord is my portion. I will wait on the Lord. And that's not trite. Like, I didn't grow up reading the Bible. This isn't me just like Bible. This is like, these are things I hide in my heart because I don't feel hopeful many times. My emotions are not always appropriate. And so what I have to remember is, what is the truth of who God is and who I am in light of who he says I am, and trust that today might be a terrible day where I feel I'm filled with much sorrow, but that I can trust in the fact that God is who he says he is, and he will do what he says he's going to do. And that doesn't take away my circumstances. It just helps me approach my circumstances with a different intention.
Right. And I don't have to catastrophize everything. This is not necessarily forever.
Yes.
This is where I am right now.
We're big catastrophizers, just like we're never leaving our apartment. This is always going to be the way that it is. And, God has brought us through some very difficult things, and we treasure those as standing stones, he and I together, where we can look back and say, look at what God did here that we never would have imagined. And so here in the midst of, this isn't unknown to God, where we are and what we're doing. It isn't unknown. And how can I lean in and learn what I need to, and also feel real feelings? Like, God is big enough for me to say, this is hard, and I feel like I'm broken right now.
Yeah, I'm a professional catastrophizer, so I don't ever remember a time I haven't been that. So that is definitely a long process of shifting my focus there. And you mentioned Lamentations 3, which was actually what I was thinking of, where the writer says, I would have despaired. He just lists all these things, even says, you've given me a bitter cup to drink. And then he lists all these things that are, he said, in the New Living, he talks about everything basically I had expected and hoped for, you've taken away. And then he says in about verse 17 or 18, yet, kind of like your and, Colton, yet the mercies of the Lord are new every morning, and great is his faithfulness. And so I think that's what I would say to all of you that are watching is it is not just a yes, but it's a yes and there is a yet to your story. No matter what you are feeling, experiencing right now, what you're anticipating happening, what you are fearful of happening, there is a yet. And that yet is that the mercies of the Lord are new every morning. He will be there for you as he has been yesterday, today, and forever. And great is his faithfulness. And we don't say that to then wipe out any fear that you have, any anxiety, any depression, any negative thoughts. It's not to just say, oh, so those are gone. So, we've read this verse, now those are gone. No, we're just saying, I hope you hear from the 5 of us telling our lives and our stories, is that it's hard. Life is hard. Every day it is a struggle. Yet, and the mercies of the Lord are new every morning, and he will be with us. He will walk with you through this holiday season, every single day of it. He already knows what you're worried about. He already knows what you're afraid of. He already knows what you doubt. He already knows what feels stressful. He already knows what grief you're carrying. He already knows all of that. And because of that, what he has for you every single day is his mercy is new. He is faithful, and we have hope because of that. That is our surest thing as we close this year, is that while truly everything around us has shaken, has moved, is shifting, he is immovable. He is someone to count on. He is faithful. And because of that, we can have hope even in all the things that can leave us torn up sometimes. And thank you so much, Rue. Thank you, my friend, for sharing your story. Colton, thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability. Meaghan and Ken, thank you for sharing your family, not just your own stories, but your family and your hope, each of you. I love you all, and I'm so glad that not only am I in the family of God with you, but I'm actually serving with you in the same church. We are part of the one church, the one family at Saddleback, and send my love to each of you. Thank you so much.